The night was cold, and the city lights flickered in the distance as Emily tightened her worn-out scarf around her neck. She had been walking for nearly an hour, her steps slow and heavy from exhaustion, but she finally reached the grand iron gates of the mansion. The estate was something out of a dream: tall marble pillars, endless windows glowing with warm light, and a garden that stretched farther than her eyes could see. It was a world so different from her own, a world of luxury she had never imagined being a part of. But tonight, she was not here to admire the beauty. She was here to work. Emily was only 19, but life had already been unkind to her. She had lost her mother at a young age, and her father, unable to cope with the loss, had drowned himself in alcohol, leaving her to fend for herself and her younger brother, Leo. She had taken up every job she could find, cleaning houses, washing dishes, even working in a small bakery, but nothing ever seemed enough. When she heard of an opening for a maid at the billionaire CEO James Thornton's mansion, she took it without hesitation. The pay was better than anything she had ever earned, and she desperately needed the money to pay for Leo's school fees and medical bills. The head maid, Mrs. Green, greeted her with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense tone. "You're late," she muttered, handing Emily a uniform. "Get changed and start with the West Wing. And remember, no talking to the family. You're invisible here." Emily nodded, swallowing back the nervous lump in her throat, and hurried to change. As she stepped into the grand hallway, her breath caught. The floors shined like glass, the chandeliers sparkled with crystals, and the air smelled of expensive perfume. It was nothing like the cramped, broken-down apartment she and Leo lived in. For hours, she worked tirelessly, scrubbing floors, dusting shelves, and making sure every surface gleamed. But just as she was about to head toward the kitchen, a voice stopped her. "Hey!" Emily froze, her heart hammering in her chest. She turned slowly, expecting to see one of the strict supervisors or another maid. But instead, she found herself face to face with a young man around her age, his piercing blue eyes locked onto hers. She recognized him instantly: Nathan Thornton, the billionaire's only son. She quickly lowered her gaze, remembering Mrs. Green's warning. I am sorry, sir. I didn't mean to." "You," he interrupted, stepping closer. "What's your name?" Emily hesitated. "Emily, sir." Nathan frowned. "Why are you working here?" The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked her that. No one had ever cared. I need the job," she said simply. Nathan studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Emily standing there, confused and breathless. Over the next few weeks, Emily continued her work, but she noticed something strange. Every time she was in the same room as Nathan, he watched her. Sometimes, he would pretend to be reading a book or looking at his phone, but she could feel his eyes on her. He never spoke to her again, but his presence was enough to make her heart race. Then, one evening, everything changed. Emily was in the library, carefully dusting the shelves, when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Nathan standing there, his jaw set, his eyes stormy with emotions she couldn't understand. "Emily," he said, his voice softer this time. "Do you have a brother?" Her breath caught. "How do you know that?" Nathan pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward her. Her heart dropped. It was Leo. Sitting on the steps of their apartment, shivering in the cold, looking pale and sick. A lump formed in Emily's throat. How did you?" "I saw him," Nathan said, his voice tight. "I was at a charity event nearby, and I saw him sitting there alone. He looked hungry. And sick." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. She had been working so hard, trying to make ends meet, but she had no idea Leo had been suffering like this. Guilt crashed over her like a wave. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Nathan asked. "Why are you going through this alone?" Emily wiped at her tears and forced a shaky breath. "Because I have no choice. He's all I have. If I don't take care of him, who will?" For the first time, she saw something shift in Nathan's expression, something that looked like admiration. Without another word, he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Dad," he said. "We need to help someone. The next day, everything changed. Leo was taken to the best hospital in the city, and Emily was given a permanent position in the mansion, not as a maid, but as a personal assistant to Mr. Thornton himself. When she tried to protest, the billionaire simply smiled and said, "You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who never gave up." As weeks passed, Nathan and Emily grew closer. He would find excuses to talk to her, to make her laugh, to remind her that she wasn't alone anymore. And slowly, for the first time in her life, Emily began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved happiness too. One evening, as they stood on the mansion's balcony, looking out at the city lights, Nathan turned to her and said, "You don't have to struggle anymore, Emily. You have me now." Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness, but from something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Because sometimes, life had a way of surprising you. And sometimes, the people who stopped to notice you were the ones who would change your world forever.